From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Well, good evening and welcome into Open Line. I'm Chuck Long, going to be here with you for the next hour. Glad that you have joined us this evening. It's a great time for you to be with us. We're going to be talking about medical malpractice. Now, something could have happened in a doctor's office or a hospital, and maybe something didn't go right. Maybe it was a minor thing, maybe it was a major thing, but you want to know what to do about it. You want to know who to talk to. Well, we've got the person for you tonight. We have attorney Clint Kelly here. We're going to be talking about medical malpractice the entire hour, and as always, this is your forum, so anytime you are ready to give us a call, question, or comment, 737-7587. That's 615-737-7587 is the number to call. We welcome Clint Kelly. Great to see you, Clint.
Good to see you again, too, yeah.
Now, it's always good when you're here because, you know, that's the thing. Of course, nobody wants something to happen. Nobody, wishes that on anybody, but sometimes things just go wrong, and I think the hardest thing is people don't know what to do. They don't know who to call. They don't know who to talk to. And your firm specializes in this, in particular, in medical malpractice.
That's correct. I'm a certified medical malpractice specialist. Been doing this for about 20 years. It's pretty intensive work because of the amount of difficulty that's involved in the complexity of the litigation. And you're right, there are a lot of people who don't know what to do when they've been badly injured due to bad medical care or bad nursing care, and sometimes they wait too long to call me. That's probably the most difficult part of my business, having to tell people that they've waited too long to make their claim.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things that we're going to be discussing throughout the hour, and we're always glad when you're here because, again, a lot of questions about this. We already have the phones starting to ring, and when you do have a question or a comment, go ahead, give us a call at 615-737-7587. Lucy is on the line with us right now. Lucy, good evening. We appreciate you calling. Do you have a question or a comment for Clint? Hello, Lucy. Are you with us? All right. All right. Okay. So let me get Lucy. We're in a new configuration, so it helps to get the phone up here. All right. So, okay. All right.
Bring on, Lucy.
All right. Here we go.
Okay, are you there?
We are here, Lucy, so thanks for bearing with me. So, on a different set tonight, okay.
Okay, here's my question. Here a few weeks ago, I was watching the state legislature, and they passed a law that if you are poor and you accept free medical care from somebody, even if it's a medical student performing that medical care, and something goes wrong, you can't sue them. Are you aware of this so-called new law?
Yeah, Lucy, I've heard about it. I have not read the bill, so I don't want to tell you what the law is until I've read it. But my understanding is the legislature was trying to pass a law that those who provide medical care on a volunteer basis, those who are not being compensated but merely doing it as a good Samaritan, if they do it badly, cannot be sued. The trial lawyers oppose that, and the reason why is the very simple law that's been in effect for almost 200 years, which if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it at all. And the concern was that people might be giving in to voluntary care thinking they're getting the standard of care, and they're not. So that's my understanding of what the bill is, but until I've read it, Lucy, I can't tell you for sure that's what it is.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for asking.
Thanks so much for calling in tonight, Lucy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And, and that's the thing, too. I think a lot of times something happens, and we were talking a little bit about it at the top of the show, as far as the timing on when something happens and when you should contact someone like your firm. So let's talk a little bit about that, because there's a very, very definite time window.
Yes, there's a tight window. I'm glad you started off with that, Chuck, because it is so important for people to understand that they only have 1 year from the date that they've discovered they've been injured to file a claim against a hospital or a physician, or else their claim is barred. And I always say this on every show, probably about 25% of the people who've contacted me over the years with a potential claim, I've looked at their cases and said, I can't take your claim because you've waited too long. And it'll be situations like the patient will be told by the doctor, look, you're going to get better, let's give it a year, let's see how it goes, and at the conclusion of the year the patient's no better, and the patient then says, well, I need to do something about this, and they've waited too long. Or I've had clients who called me up and said, my husband told me, look, let's let bygones be bygones. We'll deal with this. Lucky to be alive, that sort of thing. And then when they can't go back to work and they're losing money and their family's hungry and they need compensation, they've waited over a year and they come to me and I'm saying, I'm sorry, I can't help you. So it costs nothing to call and get an opinion. It's free. That's one of the great things I can tell people. It's one of the few free things in this life is I will give an opinion to a prospective patient for free as to whether or not I'll take your case, and I don't get paid unless the patient gets paid. So that's it really costs nothing to get the claim checked.
And the number, just so that you know, and we will give this number too at the end of the show, but 615-824-3703 is the number that they call for the Kelly firm to set up a consultation. One of the things too, there are not that many firms that actually handle these type, because it has to take so much specialism in this area. So tell us about that.
That's right. There's a small fraternity of us in the Nashville area that do this kind of work for two principal reasons. First of all, it is very complex, as I told you, and it's also very expensive. And so the lawyers who undertake this kind of work have to have a certain amount of jury trials that they have tried against doctors or hospitals. They also have to have a certain amount of medical experience, knowing how to research and look up medical literature, and they have to be able to finance these cases because they can be so terribly expensive, and the clients don't finance them. I do, or other lawyers that take these cases. So we're a fairly small group of people, and I always say that if you want a claim investigated, make sure that you have investigated by a medical malpractice specialist, someone that really knows what they're doing, because if you go to the wrong lawyer who doesn't have a lot of experience in this, you could either get a bad opinion or bad representation. You don't want to get burned by the legal system after you've already been burned by the medical system.
Absolutely. Now, I know in the past year you've been involved in a very high-profile case. Basically, it was picked up and it went nationwide after this happened, but it was something that I think so many parents fear. You never think it would happen to your newborn, but this happened to parents with a newborn in a hospital, and some things were done that were just unbelievable. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Mother went to the hospital at University Medical Center and gave birth, and of course very happy. It was a normal child, healthy child, and a few hours after the child was born, a nurse came and brought the child out of the room and took the child to the nursery. The mother thought he was just going to be examined, and the baby came back sometime thereafter, and the nurse gives the baby back to mama, and mama looks inside the baby's mouth, and he's got bleeding and like a canker sore under his tongue that continues to bleed. And so she calls the nurse back in there and asks the nurse, what's happened to my baby? And the nurse starts shuffling through the paperwork and sort of looks at mama and does a double take and says, you're going to have to talk to the doctor about this. And the doctor calls back sometime thereafter and tells the mother, I'm sorry, I operated on your son by mistake. It was a case of mistaken identity. It was a frenulectomy where they cut the tissue under the tongue. Nick Bears did a story on it, and it just went viral, Chuck. I'd never seen so many people outraged, and probably as well they should be, but it sort of sparked a discussion about, particularly in nurseries now, should babies be left with their mothers and their fathers in the room throughout the hospitalization when the child's born, as opposed to being removed, where you can actually monitor what's done to your baby and you don't let your baby get out of sight? Because you remember there was some time ago where babies were being stolen.
Right.
I remember that.
So this started that entire conversation and dialogue because of this.
It brought it back up. That's exactly right. And also brought up the fact of what we call informed consent, which is you have to have authorization to do surgery on yourself, and if it's a child, you have to give authorization for a doctor to work on the child. Even if the doctor believes in his or her best judgment, I need to do this, you've got to get permission, because ultimately control of your body or control of your child's body rests with you, not with the doctor.
And that case just, I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to things that could happen. And when that does happen, people need to know where to go, where to turn. And this is the kind of thing that hopefully they do give someone like your firm a call so that they can find out, what do we do next?
Yeah, this was one of those situations where it wasn't like a bygones be bygones, sort of formula. The mother really went through a lot. She's still going through a lot right now. I mean, when you break into the attachment between mother and child, and something like that happens, and mother feels guilty about it, and mother couldn't control or protect her child, that does damage. The child right now is being followed up by his pediatrician. We'll see how he goes, how he develops as time goes on. But the one thing I want to know, and Mama wants to know, how did this happen? and how can it be prevented in the future? Because you can only imagine when you have a child, have a baby in a hospital, you got to believe that's the most secure place, most protected place, and if it's not, then it needs to be remedied quickly.
Absolutely. So you want to be able to trust, the place where you have that child, and that's just something that was really neglected. And if something has happened to you, some neglectful form of whether it was a doctor's office, whether it was a hospital, someplace like that, make sure you give us a call during the next hour. Again, as always, the number to call is 615-737-7587. We're here with Attorney Clint Kelly. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more of your calls right after this.